A lot of how we train is influenced by the stories we tell ourselves about the way we're training. A lot of how we conduct our life in general is influenced by the narratives and the metaphors we use about ourselves, our circumstances, and our actions. And that's fine. There isn't really any way around it. But the problems that can arise often have to do with the way that the stories we're telling ourselves don't match the reality of what we're doing. And one of those stories I want to talk about today involves the way that we talk about control, whether or not we're in control or out of control of our training, of our lives in general. A lot of our stories, a lot of our narratives, a lot of our metaphors about control, unconsciously or accidentally, represent it as an either or, an on-off switch. We're in control and we're managing everything. We're fully committed, we're fully in control, or we're out of control. Everything's out of our power. We have nothing to do with it. We can't influence it at all. Sometimes that's correct. But there's a lot of situations where our control is a gray area, where we have influence, we have mastery, but circumstances are never 100% something that we can change. And one corrective I want to offer to that kind of either or narrative is to think about control as if it's driving a vehicle of some kind. So for the purposes of this metaphor, for the purposes of this story, for the purposes of this narrative, allow the definition of a vehicle to be as broad as you like. It doesn't have to be motorized. Maybe it's a kick scooter. Maybe it's a bicycle, but maybe it's motorized. Maybe it's a motorcycle. Maybe it's a car. Maybe it's a truck. Maybe it's a bus. Maybe it's farm machinery. If you're behind the wheel or at the handlebars of one of these devices, you're probably the only person who can make it go where it needs to go, where you want it to go. You can leave aside situations where your crazy friend is in the passenger seat and tries to grab the steering wheel away from you. In most situations, when you're riding that bike, when you're on that scooter, when you're behind the wheel of that car or truck, you're the only one who can make it go where it needs to go. You're the only one in control. You know damn well your control is never 100% in those situations. You know this. Somebody can swerve in front of you on the highway. Your bicycle can hit a patch of sand. It can hit a slick spot on the road. You could be driving along and suddenly turns out that there's a pothole in the road in front of you and you're the one who has to swerve. You can hit a patch of ice. Something can come along and interrupt your control. And now it's down to how skilled you are. You can watch race car drivers avoid tremendous pileups because they're able to steer at the last moment and get out of danger. You can watch guys or gals on the Tour de France or some other high-level cycling event, and their bike handling skills are off the chain, and somehow they avoid disaster. But you can watch the best bike handler in the world, and a cyclist goes down in front of them, and suddenly they're going down too. Control is not perfect control. Never. And I thought about this recently because I saw a thread online where people were talking about anxiety as an ordinary response that the body goes through. It's a response to danger. It's a response to perceived threat. And the question was, can we control it or can't we? And people were very exercised in the comments about the danger that it represents to tell anxious people who are dealing with a trauma response that they can control it and they can manage it. Yeah, as somebody who's often had to deal with trauma responses, deal with my own anxiety, deal with my own responses to threat, I felt that powerfully. It isn't necessarily fair to tell somebody in the midst of that, hey, you're in control here. Got it. But on the other hand, I've had to learn how to control my trauma responses and how to manage my anxiety. And I've been around people who chose never to manage their anxiety except by dumping it on other people. It's not an either or. And it's dangerous to think that it is only an either or. There's gray areas. There's areas where if we're not managing ourselves, we're either asking somebody else to manage for us or we're putting them through it when we're the one who has to take back the handlebars of the steering wheel. And it's tough. There isn't always an easy or a right answer because control is not absolute. One of the biggest reasons I work out is to help manage my own anxiety. It's to give myself a little bit more control and a little bit more wiggle room in the midst of tough circumstances. And we do the best we can. And I would encourage anybody, don't beat yourself up for the fact that your control isn't perfect. Don't take your hands off the steering wheel either. Do the best you can. You're not always going to get it right. You may harm others because you're out of control sometimes. Get back in control the best you can. Work it out with other people. Do the damage control that you have to for them and for yourself. And that's whether you're working on your own health or on somebody else's. It's life. We just got to get through it. Hey fam, if you've made it this far in the video, first of all, thank you. Second of all, if this video or any of my others have entertained you, made you smile, taught you something, given you some support on your own journey for mental or physical health and fitness, please consider subscribing to the channel. And if that's too much of a commitment right now, please at least give it a thumbs up. You'd be amazed how much that does for the engagement on a YouTube channel like mine. As I film this, I'm closing in on making my 100th clip. And old timers on YouTube will tell you that that's probably the minimum you need to get noticed by the algorithm. So I'm hoping as I get to that point and as I close in on 6 months to a year of making these, that the algorithm will start to prioritize me higher. And your thumbs up or a comment or a subscription will bolster that process. I don't object to making money at this, but right now I'm not sponsored. I'm not charging anything. I'm really doing this as a labor of love because of how much benefit I've gotten from this myself. Thanks for your time. Thanks for your support. Thanks for your attention. Go kick some butt, including your own, in a good way. Love ya.